What's up, everybody? American Football Network here with another video today. And today we're bringing you guys a video on the Texas quarterback debate with Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers. But before we get started, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Comment those thoughts and opinions down below. Help me reach that goal of 2,250 subs by the end of September. We're 45 away, so let's get going on that. Check out the description for links to our shop, podcast, website, Patreon page, and our college football roundup channel. Let's dive in and get started with today's video. So Quinn Ewers, well, first off, let me start with this cool stat that I found about the Texas quarterbacks. So there are two power conference QBs who have done both. One completed more than 73% of their passes, and two thrown touchdowns on 10% or more of their passes. Let me rephrase it. So they've done these two things, completed more than 73% of their passes and thrown touchdowns on 10% of more of their passes, minimum 15 pass attempts. There's two power conference quarterbacks who have done both. That is Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. Kind of nitpicky stat, but still a cool one. Still a cool one to see. But anyways, so Quinn Ewers went down with an injury last week against UTSA in the second quarter. Left early in the second quarter after suffering what they called a non-contact injury, later confirmed to be an oblique strain. And then Arch Manning took over, threw for 223 yards and accumulated 5 total touchdowns. Texas won the game easily. I believe they won 56-7. Went on to kill UTSA. It has been announced that Arch Manning will start Saturday against Louisiana Monroe. When asked in the press conference or speaking to media on Monday, Sarkisian said that Ewers would be questionable for the game. Well, it's Thursday now. Arch Manning will start. And then Sarkisian also went on to say that Ewers would be questionable against Mississippi State next week as well. He said he's listed as questionable. They're just kind of monitoring him day to day kind of thing. Obviously, when you're playing Louisiana Monroe, you don't want to rush him back. Kind of assumed Arch Manning would start this one, but also assumed that Ewers will dress out and be ready if they need him in an emergency situation, I would imagine. But this is something you don't want to make it worse, especially when you have Louisiana Monroe, and then the next week you have Mississippi State, who might be the worst team in the SEC. So, no rush in bringing him back, I would imagine. They're still 44.5-point favorites against Louisiana Monroe with Arch Manning. So, I think Manning's good enough that he can definitely win these next two games for him without any concern really at all. But the question is, long-term speaking, we don't know how long Quinn Ewers is going to be out. He's questionable this week. He's questionable next week. He might be questionable against Oklahoma. Who knows? That would be a month from when the injury occurred pretty much, but it's possible. Not only that, there's a lot of talks going around. Can Arch Manning, can he potentially take over Quinn Ewers' spot and become the starting quarterback? To me, that makes no sense at all. I'm really kind of tired of it, of all the hype that Arch Manning's get while Quinn Ewers just gets talked about like he's a bum. Let's not forget who Quinn Ewers is. This is a guy who consistently wins big games or consistently puts his team in the position to go win big games. He's a guy who, there's never any trouble with him. He's always just very consistently playing at a high level, been a great quarterback. He's going to be a top 5, top 10 pick in the upcoming draft. It's about time we start giving Quinn Ewers some credit. I get it. Arch Manning, big 5-star recruit. We all know his last name. We know what family he comes from. Peyton and Eli are his uncle. I get the hype for him. But let's not sit here and act like Quinn Ewers is some bum. Honestly, Quinn Ewers is better than Arch Manning has been. You look at Arch Manning, too. They're trying to hype him up and look at what he's done. Yeah, let's also look at who he's played. Now, don't get me wrong. He looked very impressive in both games he's played in, but let's also remember who he's playing against. Came in against Colorado State, went 5 of 6 for 95 yards and a touchdown. And then on the ground in that game, 3 carries, no yards, had a touchdown on the ground. You look against UTSA when he came in last week, he played about 2.5 quarters in that game, went 9 for 12, 223 yards, completed 75% of his passes, threw for 4 touchdowns. On the ground, had 3 carries for 53 yards, had the big 67-yard run for a touchdown. So it's, like he's played good when he's came in. Don't get me wrong. He's played great when he's come in. But he's playing against Colorado State and UTSA, and there's people going around talking that Arch Manning's in the freaking Heisman Trophy conversation. On what planet has a guy coming in and attempting 18 passes on the season against teams nowhere near the talent level to be competing with Texas? Since when in the world does that make him anywhere near some sort of Heisman Trophy quarterback? He's literally thrown 18 passes on the season. He's 14 of 18 for 318 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks. On the ground, he is 6 carries, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, why are we bringing this dude up in the Heisman Trophy conversation? The Heisman Trophy quarterback on Texas is Quinn Ewers. He's 58 of 79, 700 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 picks. That's who the Heisman Trophy quarterback is. All right, like that's who needs to be being brought up in this conversation for Heisman winner is Quinn Ewers. And I get it. He has been, but I don't know. I'm just not buying the talk that Arch Manning is going to take Quinn Ewers' spot, that Quinn Ewers is going to get benched after this little stretch of Arch Manning playing. I'm not buying that at all. I think it's crazy, but for hypothetically speaking, we're gonna play out because we really don't know how long this Quinn Ewers injury is gonna last. There's no timetable for return. All right, he's out against Louisiana Monroe. That's a win. Arch Manning's gonna win that football game. Against Mississippi State, say Quinn Ewers is still injured. I think Arch Manning wins that game. Against Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry, this is where it starts to get, you want Ewers back. You want him back by this game. I think Arch Manning could win the game. Would I be very confident in him? Not really. Wouldn't want him being the starting quarterback going into that one. Just because, I mean, you look at what they got. He's a freshman quarterback essentially. Like, he didn't really play very much at all last year. He's barely played this year against 2 bottom barrel teams. Now to go put him in the rivalry game, and I mean, I get it. By this point, he would have started 2 games. One of them, I know it's against Mississippi State, but still a conference game. But throwing him in the rivalry, I don't know about that. I think Texas could win. I don't know how well Manning would play in that game, but I think Texas would win. Then Georgia, if Quinn Ewers isn't back by Georgia, if Quinn Ewers isn't back by Georgia and Arch Manning's playing and they're winning these games, then either 1, Texas has gone downhill, or 2, Arch Manning, contradictory to what I said earlier, Arch Manning's in the Heisman Trophy conversation. One of the 2, but I feel like you got to have him back by this Georgia game. I don't trust Arch Manning to go play Georgia. I know I get it's at home, which helps. Definitely wouldn't trust him if you had to go to Athens, but that's going to be a tough game. That's going to be something that he has never seen before in his life. He will have never seen a defense that caliber before in his life and faced them. So, I mean, realistically speaking, if Quinn Ewers isn't back, if he's out through the Georgia game, I think that Texas is sitting at 3-1. I think they lose that Georgia game, but I think they beat Oklahoma. I think it'll be a closer game than obviously if Ewers played, but I do think they'd beat Oklahoma. But I do think, don't get me wrong, I've said all that to say, I do think Arch Manning can keep this Texas ship afloat. I think he can do enough against Oklahoma, against Mississippi State, and definitely against Louisiana Monroe to keep this Texas team going if Quinn Ewers were to miss those 3 games. Even if he were to miss Georgia, I think Arch Manning gives them a shot to win the game. It's going to be difficult, but I think he gives them a very good shot to win the football game, especially when you look at all the other pieces and playmakers around this team. And we saw what happened in Kentucky last week with Georgia. Georgia isn't just some juggernaut that's going to be blowing every team's out. No, they slip. They're human. They slip up too. And they did last week against Kentucky and were, able to survive it. But against a team like Texas, if you catch Georgia slipping up like that, they're not gonna survive that one. So it's possible that it's possible that Arch Manning could win that game. I think he could. If I had to pick the game, I would probably pick Georgia if Manning's starting. And obviously it depends on if he were to get to that point, how he looks against Louisiana Monroe, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma. But I could see him winning the game. So yeah, to answer the question of the whole video, yes, I think Arch Manning can 100% keep this Texas ship afloat until Quinn Ewers gets back. Is he going to win Quinn Ewers' starting job? No. Should he be in the Heisman conversation? No, not at all. Unless, like I said, Quinn Ewers is out through the Georgia game and Arch Manning has gone 4-0 and just lit it up, then, at that point, yeah, put him in there. He's beaten Oklahoma and Georgia. Put him in there. But until then, no. Like right now, people are already talking about should he be in the Heisman conversation. Not a shot. Not a shot. As a Clemson fan, looking at this, Cade Klubnik, he did not play very well week one. Played great, but it was against App State. I would argue Cade Klubnik should be in the Heisman Trophy conversation more than Arch Manning at this point. And in no way do I think Cade Klubnik should ever be mentioned with the Heisman Trophy at this point through the season. So that's just kind of my stance on where I think Arch Manning sits in terms of being on the Heisman Trophy list at this point in the season. Now, like I said, if he goes through Georgia and they go 4-0 and he lights it up, throw him in. He's deserving. But as of right now, only attempting 18 passes against Colorado State and UTSA. No. Do not put him in the Heisman Trophy conversation. But that's going to wrap up today's video. Let me guys know what your thoughts are on the whole Texas quarterback situation. Can Manning keep him afloat? Can he win the job from Ewers? Should Arch Manning be in the Heisman Trophy conversation? Let me know what you got down below. We appreciate all of you guys tuning in. Help us hit that goal of 2,250 subs by the end of September. We'll see you guys